there'll be no talking. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Astro Lunatic's Guide to the Universe. I am your hostess with the mostest, Susan, aka Astro Lunatic. Today is 1010. 1010 wins. I mean, that's just what came to mind. And if you're in New York, you probably remember 1010 wins. WINS. Pretty sure that it was an AM station. I don't even know if it's still on, but that's what popped into my brain. 1010 wins. Yeah. So today is 1010, reducing to a 9. And guess what? It's an end of a cycle. Hallelujah. Whatever's been playing out in the past 9 days, it's coming to a peak, an end, a culmination of sorts before we start again tomorrow on October 11th, which will be a 1 in the numerology. So I'll just chit chat here a little bit before I actually get into the meat of the matter. And as I'm going live, I like to share on Twitter. I haven't gotten into the habit of sharing on all of my socials, which you can find me on Twitter, AstroLunachick, all one word, and Instagram, as well as Facebook. Fuck Facebook, though. I mean, Facebook is so over. You know what I'm saying? But I'm on there. You can find me. Just look. You can like my page. I try to keep things updated, but really, honestly, the best place to keep up with me is on Twitter. Because I like it. I'm over there more. I like to share current news and point out things that correlate with the astrology and the alignments that are happening. And every once in a while, randomly, I'll go into an astrological analysis if I see something worth sharing. So you can learn a lot over there on Twitter. I think a lot of people get intimidated by Twitter who are not on there, but um, and I'm not going to say that any social media platform is perfect. It's not by any means, but I like to get my news over there, and I use Twitter really to keep my fingers on the pulse of the collective because I can see in real time how people are responding. You know, when you go on a post by Barack Obama and there's nothing but disgust and, you know, asking the uncomfortable questions. I mean, you can just see where the tide is turning, literally, where the support is going or not going. You can see how people really feel. And for the most part, it is fairly free and uncensored ish, although, you know, there is still censorship in a subtle form, I guess. I'm not really sure. I don't know what the algorithms are looking like right now. But I think it's pretty much, as far as social media goes, it is probably the best one. Anywho, so that's the best place to find me. But if you subscribe to my YouTube channel, of course, you should be getting the updates. If you hit the little bell there, um, you should know when I go live. And I tend to do my live shows uh around noonish. Today it's a little early, and um that is Eastern time. If you don't know, now you know. Uh, and I would just like to apologize for yesterday's fiasco. Um, we should just call that Welcome to the Capricorn Smackdown. Now, I'm normally a pretty reserved person for the most part. I'm pretty easygoing, not really that excitable. I mean, some things get me riled up. But, you know, the one thing you need to know about a Capricorn is don't fuck with my work, don't mess with my reputation or my money, or, um, don't disrespect, because Capricorn is about loyalty, respect, um, kind of like doing the right thing, being serious, you know, and there's not one thing that I hate more than another when people disrespect. Because, you know, for instance, what happened yesterday? I was just fucking fit to be tied. And you saw, like, my Capricorn shit come out. Like, I'm just, like, ready to, like, just bust a blood vessel when I've told everyone in the house, okay, I'm going to be recording. Please try to be quiet, you know. And I've got the kid hocking up a lung in the bathroom. And then I got, you know who, I'm not going to even mention their name because honestly, uh, uh, it's just, it's just the attention getting class clown kind of BS that somebody is known for, and we all kind of like, you know, we know like they're not a bad person for sure. And he was pulled aside after class and spoken to. Um, but like that's who I am. I'm letting it be known. Let it be known right now. I'm not going to tolerate bullshit in my chat. There's a line that you can't cross. And that person kind of teeters on the fence. It's not, I don't know, like, uh, never mind. I'm just not going to give it more attention. But don't disrespect. Don't, like, if you're in my chat room and you're bullshitting and you're cracking jokes and it doesn't have anything to do with what I'm talking about, when I'm serious and I'm trying to give people information that they need to understand, to make good choices, to navigate fucking life. If you're not here for that, then get the fuck out. I don't you know, I appreciate everyone's support, but you're not supporting, you're detracting if you're in my chat room bullshitting, cracking jokes, okay? And there is a certain line that I don't think needs to be crossed, cuz at a certain point it's just not funny. And polite people will, like giggle and pat you on the head. Okay, yeah, here you go. You want some attention, whatever. But it gets to a certain point, and my last nerve was worked yesterday because uh, I really don't like it when I've made my my feelings known. I've made my wishes known. I expect that you're here to learn about astrology. And, you know, if you're joking around in the chat room, yeah, you know what? th- I could take a certain amount of it. I'm not serious all the time, but you got to read the room. And if somebody's bullshitting in my chat room, then you're not listening to me and you're distracting other people. And when I go into the chat and I am trying to acknowledge the people who are supporting me. And if you're bullshitting and making fun and making off color jokes, then you're not supporting me. You're disrespecting me and you're disrespecting my listeners and the people who are in the chat, especially who are female. I'm not going to tolerate that shit. And it might have seemed like it was harmless, but it's an ongoing thing. And I just reached the end of my rope. And so, you know, if you were there for it and you're back today, then you're cool. Then you're peeps. Then you're your fam, your tribe, or you get it. Or maybe you thought it was funny. And it is kind of funny. I'm laughing at myself, you know, ranting. Cause just know this. I'm not a grudge holder. I'm not a nasty person. I'm not going to shit talk. But if you want attention on my show, you're going to get it. And it's not going to be the kind of attention that you're going to like. Because I will put you in the corner with the fucking dunce cap. And there you go. You want attention? Next time, that's the other thing. I don't give two warnings. I let my feelings be known. I let my expectations be known. I only fuck with people who have the same values that I do, who respect me, who respect my work, who respect me as a person. Fuck around, find out. Okay. Other people might put up with that kind of bullshit. But you know what? I'm not a bartender. You're not sitting at my bar and I have to put up with your bullshit and smile because I work there and you're tipping me. Because quite honestly, if there were money involved, if I had a super chat and you're donating $50, then I'll put up with your bullshit. Ah, that's another Capricorn trait, like um if I'm getting something out of it, then, like I might kind of give you one or two passes. You might get two passes. But when I'm not getting anything out of it and you're just fucking around, I ain't got time for that shit. All right. Now that I've spent almost the first 15 minutes of the show, let's get into it. What is bringing this energy? Why is she talking like this? What is this all about? Well, this is October 10th. It is the 9 day. So that particular energy that I've been putting up in various ways for the last 9 days, you're dealing with the end of my rope, which, you know, not everyone understands the beginning of that rope or where it started, what the root of the issue is, and how long I've been putting up with shit, and now I'm done. But everybody's got their own rope. You have your own personal rope and um, your personal 9 day cycle. So good luck to everyone out there. And I feel it. I feel for what you're going through. Venus is in Virgo now. So Venus entered Virgo yesterday, and what you witnessed was a very much a Venus in Virgo kind of a thing where um It's not the Venus in Leo where we might be cool with the antics and the attention getting and, it's maybe a lighter relationships. We're dealing with relationships with Venus. Perhaps a little more understanding for the need for attention and maybe overlooking it. But in Virgo, Venus is more serious. Venus is opposing Saturn and she's putting up a boundary. That's what Venus did yesterday. Entered into Virgo and immediately faced Saturn and said, "It's time to get serious now. We need to exercise a little restraint, maturity, draw a boundary, rein it in, and face consequences in relationships for crossing a boundary." That was right there in full regalia, in demonstration, in real time of Venus's frustration in Virgo. And because, you know, Virgo, let's look at Virgo. It's very much analytical. It is discrimination. Not necessarily in a bad way, although it can be dealing with discrimination, but it is weeding things out because it is trying to perfect. And Venus is also trying to be of service, of help, be, the helping attitude of Virgo, the helping side. Um, so there's discernment and discrimination. Discernment is a more positive way of saying being discriminatory. Um, but also, uh, with Saturn, it's kind of cutting out what we don't need, cutting out the bullshit, getting, down to what the real important, what are your values? If something is not aligning with your values, then it's going to cause friction, obviously. So we are looking at that in terms of Venus in Virgo and relationships. I talked about it yesterday in terms of money and financial situations and having to tighten the belt, that kind of thing. Um, but there's more of a focus on it today because the moon is in Virgo. So the moon was in Leo yesterday, a little more lighthearted, but Venus was in Virgo. So and opposing Saturn. So while the mood might have been, a little bit more light, joking around, whatever. Um, but Leo is ruled by the sun, and the sun is in Libra. So the sun is looking at and weighing both sides of the equation. And where things are out of balance, it's going to cause friction. The sun is opposite Chiron. Chiron is the wounding, the offense, the pain, hurting someone's feelings, and um, Saturn opposing Chiron um, is, where somebody feels like you're not being considerate, someone's not being considerate. Someone might be completely self-focused. That's Chiron in Aries. And being a little selfish. Uh, it's Aries, so it could be aggression. It's it's Mars, right? So Mars is squaring Pluto, being a little controlling, aggressive, sexual too, because both Mars and Pluto are co-rulers of Scorpio, and Mars is going into Scorpio. And so pushing things a little bit too far with that Mars square to Pluto. Also, that's getting pissed off, right? Pushing things too far and things blow up and somebody, gets somebody gets fucking pissed off. And then the smackdown. So today, yeah, obviously the mood is a little bit more humble, somber. That's Virgo and Saturn, Venus opposing Saturn. Uh, Shame, feeling restricted in the doghouse, maybe. Um, but in general terms, we have become more Virgo-like in our dealings with other people because Venus represents our relationships, our social um interactions, and Virgo is meant to be humble, helpful. It wants to make things better. Um, it is taking a hard because it's opposite Saturn, a hard look at who we are and how, what is who we think we are in relationships versus um, how we are actually seen or how our actions are portraying us or betraying us, right? You could say that you want to help people or that you're very humble, um, but the subconscious part of it, which is coming out with Saturn and Pisces, um, and that's where the put your money where your mouth is portion comes in, where we have to look at our shadow and say, well, I say that and people will take me at my word, but what happens when my actions don't line up with that? And I say that I'm humble, but the way I'm acting doesn't seem very humble or helpful, right? Venus and Virgo. Um, and so I've been talking about Venus being in sextile to Mars. Venus is our values and Mars is our actions. Do our actions line up with our words? Do we honor our word? Do we keep our promises? Do we apply the same standards to ourselves that we expect of other people? Um, is our image of ourself who we present ourself to be to other people and how we think who we think we are versus how we actually come across because of how we present ourselves in what we say, how we interact with one another, and how, the actions that we take. So we're being having our metal tested. And I think that that's metal, Mettle, but we can look at it alchemically and testing your metal, Matal, is what you're really made of. and the purification process that we go through alchemically on a soul level, and the ego part of us, which burns off what is not gold and what is the lead, which is representative of Saturn, um, of the ego, the lead of the ego versus the gold of the soul. So, going through a purification process, and it's happening through our relationships because the coming eclipse is in Libra. So, um, I think that the the message that we need to get is going to come through our relationships. Um, if we're having issues, if there's friction, then we have to look at that specifically. Are 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 we being are we allowing certain things um that we shouldn't? Do we need to have higher standards? Are we putting up with bullshit? Are we letting people disrespect us? Are we ignoring um things that we need to confront? The thing about Libra is that it is non-confrontational. It really is seeking balance, but the problem is when things are out of balance, oftentimes, and this is the shadow part of Libra, Libra won't address it because it wants to keep the balance. So it goes along to get along. Um, or, and in like the worst part of Libra is where they could be very negative and aggressive under the surface towards a person, but they won't let you see that. They won't tell you what's bothering them. They'll just either keep it inside until it just blows up, and then you get to see the dick side of Libra, or they'll just go talk shit behind your back, and then you get the frenemy scenario. So, uh, it's definitely, I would say, the Pluto and Libra generation that coined the term frenemy. And that's very passive aggressive. And we've had Mars going through Libra, passive aggressive stuff. So, what's passive aggressive? Yeah, like when you say something with a smile on your face that's really negative, it's betraying the negative side, but it's not obvious negativity, and it's said as a joke, um, whether you're like busting balls or, oh yeah, I was just kidding, um, that kind of negative humor, or you pretend to like somebody, meanwhile, you're, um, you really don't like that person at all. And you have a lot negative to say about that person when they leave the room, right? Like behind the scenes, you'll shit talk. That's very Mars in Libra or Libra, negative Libra, shadow Libra in general. And we're dealing with that because Mars is like at the very last degrees of Libra, and Mars squaring Pluto is showing the dark side of Libra, and the sun is in Libra and Mercury's in Libra. So while Libra wants to be diplomatic, um, sometimes Libra doesn't have the balls to admit that they're not happy with the dynamic in the relationship, or that they don't like something about a person, or they just want to be liked by everybody. They want to be let into every social circle. So, they got to be friends with everybody. But it's not. genuine, that's not true Libra. True Libra, you can see this with people, demonstrated with people in politics where um, they are able to have a heated debate, where you've got both sides of the issue being discussed, and but without animosity, anger, judgment on a personal level, right? um we've lost that in our government. I mean, I don't know, maybe it's coming back, but uh that's, something that is the positive side of Libra. Libra is diplomacy. How do you have diplomacy if you don't talk about the situation, right? How could you be diplomatic if you're not even willing to listen to any kind of negativity? All right. So, that's the bullshit love and light kind of view of no, we're not supposed to talk about anything negative. If it's like the worst of the Libra immaturity and devolved Libra is not even acknowledging that conflict does occur. And if there is conflict, well, you know, you're not the person for me, or we just, we should just end this friendship or just cut the person off because you can't handle conflict or the opposing viewpoint. That's spineless. That's ballless. Um, and that's Capricorn's opinion of unevolved Libra. So, because we do rank higher, I say we, but Capricorn, the sign Capricorn, ranks higher in the zodiac. So, anyway, I have the South Node in Libra, so I understand a lot of that, and having got caught up, caught up, as well as watched it play out. So I get it, but as a Capricorn, I'm here to call it out, um, because Capricorn says, and Pluto in Capricorn says, grow up. You know, the world is not here to wipe your ass. Don't think that everything is perfect. I never promised you a rose garden. And, we're living in serious times. So grow up. That's all I have to say about that. Yeah, let's look at the planets where they are. Like I said, the moon today in Virgo, it's earthy, it's grounded, it's practical, it's not frivolous because it's Virgo, and Venus is right there. We're dealing with our values, our relationships, and females and respect. Um, the moon is waning. We're coming up on a solar eclipse. And for the for today, really the only aspect is moon conjunct Venus opposite Saturn. So Saturn is serious. Saturn is the dad. Saturn is discipline. Saturn is karma, which is repercussions, cause and effect. Um, and the moon is our feelings, the mood in general, where our attention is going, our intuition, conjunct Venus. So we're looking at, for the most part, relationships. Um, yes, it can be finances if that applies in your chart and specifically to um, your situation, can be, but I'm going to go with mostly relationships and on a larger scale, politics, because the sun is in Libra, and Libra is Venus ruled. And we have an overwhelming amount of Libra energy. Mercury, the sun, the South Node, and Mars. So we're very much Venus focused. And relationships matter. Um, it's very difficult to succeed in life if you can't get along with people. Or to, have satisfying friendships, um, work relationships, romantic relationships, if you can't get along with people. Um, or if there's an issue. I'm not saying there's a blame thing here, but if there is an issue with how you relate to people, then it will be difficult. You will find yourself isolated. Um, Relationships will be a challenge. So, with Venus and Virgo, we can, hopefully without judgment and shame and blame, look at ourselves and how we relate to other people, starting like right off the rip, because Venus had gone into Virgo and immediately opposing Saturn. And Saturn is like the guardian of the threshold that says, as you pass through this gate, you must deal with certain things. And the obstacles here that we want to look at are, well, if Saturn is the obstacles, the cause and effect, the karma, the repercussions, the restriction, the lack of, and the loneliness, perhaps. Being in Pisces and being now that, okay, so Saturn is retrograde. It has retrograded to 1 degree and 1 minute of Pisces. That's like the first degree of Pisces. It's a one. One is the loneliest number that you'll ever do. Two can be as bad as one. It's the loneliest number since the number one. Can you imagine being with somebody and being isolated and lonely at the same time? What's worse? I'd rather be alone because I like myself. Um, I've never been one to stay usually long in a situation where I'm not happy. I couldn't. I just couldn't. You know, that's just not me. But I understand that a lot of people stay in situations that they're not happy in, whether it's family or a spouse or whatever, friendship, whatever. Stick around because that's my one friend. And if I don't, if I ditch that person, I won't have anybody. You know what? Sometimes being alone is a really good thing. You really get to know yourself and see how strong you are. But like the heartache of being alone and or being alone yet being with someone else. That is fucking awful. Uh so that's Venus opposite Saturn, and that's the moon triggering that today. Um, so, and also letting us know that we need to take a good hard look at ourselves and our relationships and what that reflects to us about ourselves and perhaps what needs to change. You know, if our relationships are unsatisfying, we cannot blame it on the other person because we are participating in the dynamic. So we kind of have to look at it as like, okay, on some level, I'm choosing this because if I chose not to, I would leave or change the situation. And at that point, we kind of have to look at, all right, what is it that I am unconsciously projecting here that I need to see and make conscious as to why I'm allowing or pulling a situation in or staying in this situation because I have unconscious beliefs that whatever I don't deserve more, or this is how it has to be because this is the way my family's been for whatever. You're repeating family karma or whatever. Uh, because of the solar eclipse, like I said, in Libra. Now, the other thing is with the sun, was mentioning yesterday, but I think I got distracted uh when I was talking about the stars that were involved, and the sun being at 17 degrees is conjunct Cras, which is Corvus. It's in the constellation Corvus, the crow, which has to do with agitators. So, on some level, obviously, this is going to be playing out right now, whether it is political or in the personal life. Um, we're also, let me see, just want to check and see what we're dealing with the asteroids today. With, well, Chiron we discussed. So there's an offense, a wound, healing that's being highlighted before the eclipse, shining a light on Chiron in Aries and the sun in Libra. And we're dealing with the North Node in Aries and the South Node in Libra. Means we're dealing with Aries, Mars, aggression, assertiveness versus peaceful diplomacy, um, war, obviously. I don't have to even point that out. Manipulation, control, obsessiveness, being pushy, uh, but really highlighting the Aries Libra axis, which is the me and the we. So when things are too weighted to the Aries side, where Chiron is, then we're going to have difficulty. So, where people are being too selfish, too self-centered, too about the me, and not considering the we of Libra, you're going to have an issue. Um, so these things are coming up before the eclipse. It's already been happening. It's just that it's reaching a peak. It's reaching a breaking point. And what Venus is doing is probably drawing a boundary, asserting their values and discriminating between those who share their values and those who don't. There is a splitting that I'm seeing, and this will happen with the eclipse. It's already happening. It'll be really obvious with the eclipse. Um, where where the where the ego is wounded will be very obvious. Where people have not healed will be very obvious. Um, and without even going into politics, I mean, you can just see it. There are just it's always very, dualistic. Obviously, we have for the most we have a two-party system, right? And the us versus them, and the lack of acknowledgement that there are two opposing sides, and that it can't be all or nothing. You have to um, you have to compromise. So Libra is about compromise, the acknowledgement that two opposing polarities and ideas and value systems and parties or whatever, to in order to peacefully coexist, it can't be all or nothing. It can't be one to the exclusion of the other. One side doesn't have exclusive rights to operate, because that's when we have war. Ah, and we do. We have war. So there's a lot of that going on. A lot of agitation with the sun at 17 degrees of Libra, Kras, the fixed star, in the sign of Corvus, and a lot of crowing. A lot of crowing going on, and eating crow, probably. Um, Give me a second here. I'm just gathering my thoughts about where I want to take it. Well, the major focus today obviously is Venus, and Venus rules Libra. So Mercury at 10 degrees is going to square asteroid house in conjunct to Jupiter when it reaches 13 degrees, and it will square Hades. This is something that I tweeted the other day. So when the sun was squared a house, we were having major problems. Obviously, it started before the exact square. Um, but obviously, that's going to be part of our focus, as now Mercury is going to square asteroid house. It's at 10. It will be going up to 11, 12 tomorrow. So October 11th being the 1, today's the 9, tomorrow's the 1. Tomorrow something new begins. It's a new 9-day cycle. And we'll see. The moon is making a trine to Jupiter and a trine to House in Capricorn. We could have a new speaker tomorrow. But if we do, that's going to throw things into chaos, probably. Uh, and we'll have a new battle being fought when Mercury on the 12th squares House, and the moon in Virgo at 26 degrees is going to oppose Neptune. So every time we've had something at this degree of 26, 25, 26 degrees of Virgo, a lot of the details have come out about things. A lot of things, the sketchy lies and, um, the illusion and the gaslighting and the bullshit that we've been being fed, we've gone to a deeper level of at one at the same time that we're being fed new bullshit, we with eyes to see are seeing past the bullshit. Every time we've had this opposition to Neptune. And if you recall, we have asteroids Clotho, which is weaving the fate, Pandora, Pandora's box, right? We've got Neptune at 26 Pisces and Boracisi. Boracisi are the lies that we quote we the collective, not me and you here in this space, but um the lies that are being believed by, let's say, the general public in order to keep the peace, be happy, or the lies that we quote we as a couple, let's say a married couple, um, if a relationship is, based on a lie that we both agree to and agree not to face, and we agree that we're just going to ignore it and sweep it under the carpet. This is a very sensitive point here, and Mercury opposed that point about 2 weeks ago, roughly. Week and a half, 2 weeks ago. And the sun opposed it before that. So we were all being given a chance to see from about, let's say, the middle of September when the sun opposed Neptune, and then the beginning of October when Mercury opposed Neptune. Once Mercury was out of its shadow, it's like, all right, you had the chance to see it. What did you say? Are you acknowledging? Where are we deceiving ourselves? But the other thing is, and we can't ignore this, that Neptune in those last degrees of Pisces has a lot to do, especially with the asteroid Boracisi there, has a lot to do with illusions and deceptions and lies when it comes to religious beliefs. So we are dealing with religious extremism. We saw it with the resurgence of the asteroid theme, like the asteroid hitting the Earth. This is the big one. Um, Extinction. It just seems like around this time every year, there's some kind of event or some kind of meme circulating within the collective that, this is it. We're all going to be destroyed. This is the Battle of Armageddon. Um, and it shows how think, what people believe regarding the possibility of extinction or life after death or the savior complex. That's Pisces. This is the end of the age of Pisces. We're going into the age of Aquarius, or some might say that we're in it. There's an overlap. You see the thing die as the new thing is being born. Okay, it doesn't just happen overnight. So this is the death rattle of the age of Pisces and uh the Abrahamic religions, um, and a new way of looking at those particular religions and their ancient scriptures, perhaps. A new perspective about that, but the lies, because every ancient writing, every ancient document was translated, and not just linguistically translated, but also seen through the lens of our modern times and our belief systems, or the political climate of the world and of the culture that was translating these documents. I mean, even if you look at like the Gnostic material, Gnostic myths, um, there's two interpretations right now that are floating around regarding the Gnostic myth and how we interpret it versus perhaps a clearer version of what the Gnostics actually believed and what they actually meant. And if you're interested in that, I would refer you to John Lamb Lash, who wrote the book Not in His Image. And a lot of the discussion about the Gnostics and the archons originated with, largely, with John Lamb Lash. However, um, different people have interpreted the Gnostic myth differently, and it's my opinion that John Lamlash is more accurate, but because people read his work and took their own interpretation and put their own spin on it, um, and really didn't credit him, because I think a lot of people, many people, who we look at today as, being the biggest voices, let's say, who are speaking about such things, about Gnosticism, about archons. Um, a lot of people will listen to other people and then take that and run with their own spin on it, because everyone sees things through their own lens. I actually think that John Lamb Lash is pretty accurate, because he was trying to see things as the Gnostics saw them, and their interpretation of what we would call the matrix or Maya, and not being a complete illusion, but being the dream world of the goddess Sophia, however you want to pronounce it. Um, but the Nag Hammadi scriptures being translated by the anti-Gnostics, right? So, I mean, if you left behind a diary of your life, your experiences, and your interpretation of your experiences and your beliefs, and you die and you leave that, and the person that ends up with your diary that gets to interpret it and write a book about it happens to be someone who fucking hates you, do you think that you're going to be accurately represented? That's the point that John Lamb Lash is making in regard to the Gnostics. And I've heard people that I very much respect, who have authored their own books, make comment on the Gnostics and what they supposedly what they believed, or their worldview, and I think it's inaccurate. So that just goes to show you that information is in the eye of the beholder. And a lot about the Piscean age is about the interpretation of other people's writings and experiences and their interpretation of what God is or who God is. It's based on their culture. If you don't know their culture, then you don't really know what they were trying to convey. And so you interpret it through your own culture. So what we're looking at right now, every time we have an aspect to Neptune, we're looking at what we need to see more clearly before we fully go into the age of Aquarius. We need to see what the errors were of the Piscean age. And that would be specifically religion, the religious beliefs that have grown up around certain writings and scriptures of people who lived in a time that we have no fucking clue about. And then we put our own interpretation on it. I mean, just look at all you got to do is look at cults and look at the cult dynamic and look at what they believe. Just take a detached view of where they ended up, right? As opposed to where it started out, as far as, like, let's say, Christianity, and extreme beliefs, or any religion. Well, Abrahamic religions specifically, because we're dealing with the age of Pisces. Um, and this is what we're moving away from. So, but we're going to see the worst of the worst at the very end of the degrees. It's the most intense, um, in regard to what we consider to be the age of Pisces, with Neptune at the end of Pisces. Obviously, we're going to see the most extreme, the most polarized, the most projecting, the most radical, extreme, delusional, culty beliefs. We're going to see it. Yeah, and we've been seeing it. It's been coming up. Uh, if we, look at the media, the public, whatever people are discussing, cases, you could just look at cases, court cases, crimes committed in the name of religion. I would specifically point out Nexium, um, uh, LDS stuff that's been coming out big time past few years, Scientology, the obvious ones, but recently, Eight Passengers, which is a YouTube channel. I think that those people were involved in an offshoot of LDS, I want to say. Um, but that's religious beliefs taken to the extreme to where they become abusive. Anyway, how did I get here? Yeah, so every time we have this uh, aspect to Neptune where we have the truth being revealed to us in a very uncomfortable way. Um, and specifically right now, what's blowing up right now, I don't have to tell you what it is, but it's going to get more intense. And it has to do with the Neptune. It's because of the Neptune, the delusion, the extremism, the religion. Um, At 25 degrees of Pisces, if we're fast forwarding about a week, we're going to have the Sun and Mercury passing over the South Node, the Sun being perhaps a leader, Mercury being words, information, news, something said, contracts, news media, maybe, and squaring Pluto, super fucking intense. Um, and the South Node, Mercury and the Sun in conjunct to Neptune. So Neptune in Pisces, we could also look at that as dementia, or losing one's mind, being delusional, perhaps saying something, doing something. The Sun highlighting someone's mental incapacity, perhaps, um, or the announcement of someone stepping down, losing power, being taken out, Pluto, assassinated, possibly, uh, due to that Neptune. Or, um, yeah, I mean, definitely people in positions of power losing their shit, losing their sense of decorum and diplomacy. And that really, I will tell you, will become extremely apparent with the eclipse on the 14th. But it's important, everything leading up to the eclipse, because we need to see it. And it's going to be, I mean, I just can't even I can speculate. I could look at things the way they are right now and say, I think this is how it's going to play out. However, it can go sideways very quickly. It can go in a direction that you never thought it would go. And I don't know. It could be like it's weird, definitely weird, like we've never seen this kind of shit before, and destabilizing in terms of, people who expect stability and things that you can count on, and, based on historical precedents. Past performance is not an indicator of future whatever, whatever. It's gonna get weird. It's gonna get super weird. So, like I keep saying, the eclipse is making an inconjunct to Uranus. Uranus is weird. Weird can be wonderful. I'm gonna go with weird is wonderful. Because if you don't have any fear about the outcome of a thing, you can sit back and watch it as if it was an illusion. See, that's another thing, that another belief system that is being dealt with and experienced and worked through is what is real and what is an illusion. To quote the Moody Blues, I think both things are true, right? It's illusion, not real, but at the same time, very fucking real. Some things are an illusion, and you're going to have to be able to discern between the two. And I think that what we will start to also experience with this eclipse is, um, I don't know, maybe like a upgrading of our bullshit detector, and to just be able to look and observe because we're not emotionally invested, if we're not emotionally invested or influenced by an event, to say fact or fiction, truth or bullshit, and call it out. And, you know, it's like going to a movie and observing the special effects and the stunts and knowing who did their own stunts and what's CGI, but you'll just know. You'll just know because and a level of wisdom that's gained when you learn to detach and observe. Your judgment won't be clouded by your emotions or your fear about the outcome of a particular situation. So, becoming a clearer channel and being able to rely on the radio signal that you're getting through your intuition. Um, Uranus, I look at Uranus and Aquarius as our own internal radar or, radio waves because our body is starting to respond to energy, you know, waves. So there's positive, you know, energy coming towards us just as much as there are detrimental waves like EMF, but it's the subtle currents that you can't see. And Uranus is one of the planets that is involved in the raising of the Kundalini. So, in order to have a smooth experience when we're talking about the rising of the Kundalini, is to clear out the blockages beforehand, sort of snake the pipes, as it were. So, the clearer we are in terms of our consciousness and our, participating in our own evolvement, acknowledging our shadow, whatever, taking responsibility, um, in terms of our experiences and our values and our relationships, whatever. Anyway, the clearer a quote channel we will be for this the Uranus energy, becoming a stronger antenna. And so, uh, I think the eclipse is that we've experienced. Um, Welcome to Weirdo World. It's been Clown World for a few years now. It's been Clown World. It's definitely going to continue to be Clown World, but maybe getting a little bit weirder. Um, what else? So on the eclipse, just to continue around that vein, we see some of the things that are unfolding before the eclipse that I just talked about. A lot having to do with Chiron at 17 degrees of Aries. in retrograde. Again, moving very slow. It's very strong. Speaking of the personal, the individual in Aries, and the wounding. So the offenses are very personal. Aries has to do with sovereignty, so the fight for personal independence and sovereignty and acknowledgement. Um, see that with identity politics, but you know, um, it's moving more towards, I would say, patriotism, self-governance, what do you call it? Responsibility, right? Aries is resourcefulness and agency in terms of ability to act. And resourcefulness means that you can do it yourself, whatever it is. Not having to rely on another person is the goal when it comes to Aries. And so Chiron is showing us the blockages to all of those Aries, fully expressing the Aries energy. Now, another thing that I wanted to point out, which is very important, is that tomorrow Pluto goes direct. So Pluto has already stationed. It slows down. It was retrograde. It's slowing down to station to go direct. And so being very powerful when planets change directions, and because it is a planet that is located very far, it has a long orbit, it is moving very slow. So when it stations to go direct, those effects are felt a few a week to even 2 weeks beforehand to a week or two after. Let's give it. Um, and Pluto will go direct tomorrow. So, what is Pluto? It's death and destruction, it's power, it's transformation, it's the phoenix. Pluto is the ruler of Scorpio. Mars is going into Scorpio after having squared Pluto. The fight is on. So don't think that the events of the past week or so have been, you know, just a blip and it's going to pass. It's not. It's building, absolutely building. So Pluto being very strong right now because it's going to go direct. Uh, last few degrees of, I'm sorry, Capricorn. So this obviously has specifically to do with the United States because we understand it's the Pluto return of the US. It's most intense right now. Um, and it's very dangerous. Pluto square Mars energy, very volatile, very dangerous. And with Pluto going direct, it is very intense during this time. So please be safe. Um, I would expect to see changes in our government that we have, like, it's just going to blow your mind. It's just going to be like boom, boom, boom. Changes in procedure and policy, things that are long-standing traditions and things we've done and we don't expect to do them differently. This is not business as usual. A lot of things are going to change. The world and governments, plutocracy, and Capricorn, obviously, is a sign that represents governance, authority, power, and control with Pluto there. And so, what we're dealing with is a pushback, a push by governments wanting to control, to keep things under control, you know, to keep their control over those that they are governing, and the people pushing back against too much control. So the Libra eclipse is playing into this balance of control and vying for power, trying to keep things stable, um, where there's also great instability. So this does build the 11th tomorrow. Don't forget, it's a 1 day in numerology. Um, moving up towards the 12th, it'll be if you don't have to, if things are unclear and you can't make a decision, you probably feel pretty like you could be very confused at this time and just trying to understand what's going on. I think that changes happen naturally with eclipses, so just kind of see how things play out. The 13th, again, Mars, sorry, the 12th, Mars moves into we have the Pluto Scorpio energy intensifying because Mars on the 12th moves into Scorpio after having squared to Pluto. So the fight, the battle, the aggression, the way we assert ourselves, pursuit, that's Mars, aggression, anger, the way we deal with that is being, it's stronger, but it's being sublimated as Mars goes into Scorpio. So I feel like on the 12th, it might be a little bit calmer, but like, when's the next shoe going to drop? Because the moon is opposite to Neptune. But then the moon will enter Libra. The thing with the dark moon is because the moon is in Libra, goes into Libra later in the day on the 12th, and that is the dark of the being in contemplation, not, removing yourself from the drama, spiritual pursuits, artistic expression, doing your own release work. That's a good time. The 12th, the 13th, and the 14th. Just take time to rest and rejuvenate. Mercury is going to make an inconjunct on the 12th to Jupiter. So the news that we hear in terms of, well, Jupiter is ninth house and Sagittarius. It's, foreign cultures and that kind of thing. Also law, legal issues, government in terms of our legal system, and Mercury will be squaring the house. So are they doing something that is going against their own procedures, or are they changing the rules? Like they're right that they need to they need a s- they want to get a speaker in there that will change the rules because the way that they govern and the way that they vote and the rules, the procedures. That's also Virgo. So we are dealing with Venus in Virgo and the moon in Virgo. I think on the 12th, we could be talking about the changing procedures within our government when it comes to um, the House, right? Uh, or how they choose a Speaker of the House. I don't know. But it should be very interesting. The 13th, again, Libra, moon, waning moon. There's not a whole lot of energy left. I feel like, there's a lot happening behind the scenes that we're not seeing. That's a very much dark moon. We're not going to know until it's all over. We'll get the story later. You can get the scoop later. Hmm. What else is going on? Well, the 13th, it's the day before the eclipse. The moon will make an inconjunct to Saturn. There's an adjustment. Saturn, we could just say Saturn is government and authority, and maybe the lack of transparency. Saturn would be transparency. Pisces is lack of transparency. We'll see what comes up. But Mars, because Mars, by that time, the 12th and the 13th, Mars is going to make a trine to Saturn. So that would be taking action, um, in a responsible way. Mars trine Saturn, you can get a lot done. It's very productive. And the aggression is not quite the same as when Mars is in Libra. This is down and dirty, gotta get it done. Somebody gotta do it. Uh, Step up and take responsibility and be a little cutthroat about it. But, it's ruthless in a different way. But I think that Mars has passed the test after squaring to Pluto. Also, like, we're just not going to put up with bullshit anymore. And taking back the power, whatever, in whatever way that means. For each individual, a lot going on underneath and behind the scenes before the eclipse. Done, and Mercury makes an opposition to Chiron, the same opposition that the sun is making right now. The sun is shining a big light on relationships, diplomacy. That's my alarm. Um, and Chiron, the way to heal, and or looking at the wound, looking at the offense. Mercury is going to be able to rationalize, dramatic, um, and discuss what the issue is, what the Chiron issue is, what the root of the cause of the dysbiosis and disharmony, lack of balance, whatever, blah, blah, blah. That needs to change with the eclipse. Okay, that's it for today. That's all I want to say, I think, at this moment in time. Anyway, thank you for listening and being so patient. And I hope you have a great day. Enjoy the rest of it. Be safe and be hopeful. Be excited. Look at the changes as being positive. Like, I think it's going to ultimately be positive. Seems crazy at the time, um, because it's weird and we've never been here before. But change is good. Be on the good side of the change. And I think, we'll be all right. Anyway, wrapping it up, thank you very much. Again, you can find me, Astro Lunatic, if you are interested in book. You can also reach me on my Astro Lunatic hotline at 914-222-1231. Leave a message or text me and I will get back to you. Thank you so much. I appreciate all of you. Please like and subscribe and share because sharing is caring. And I'll be back. I'll be back soon. If anything comes to mind, I will update you guys on the newest developments. Yes, so follow, subscribe, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Rumble. Check out the Rumble channel. I don't I know what's going to be censored. I know what's already being censored. I don't care to talk about it. I'll talk about it in other terms that I don't think will get me cut off of here, but if I ever happen to talk about anything extreme and I will throw it up on Rumble. So if you're subscribed over there and you're getting the notifications, then you can check what I don't always put things on Rumble, but when I do, they're usually my naughty stuff. All my naughty stuff will be on Rumble. Although I have heard recently that Rumble is starting with some fuckery, but we'll see where it's going. Who knows where I'll end up? Maybe I'll just be streaming live on X. X, formerly Twitter. All right, you guys, stay cool, and I'll check you next time. Ciao for now.